What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Dissect That Film, where we dissect your favorite films, film franchises, and TV. Today, on a new edition of Slice of TV, we are reviewing Paramount Plus's newest TV series, Halo, based on the hit video games from Microsoft / Xbox. Joining me is the one, the only, Mr. Schoening.
I feel that's way overhyped, but hey, I'll take it, and my ego is inflated because of it.
Listen, I should have asked you before we did the recording if you wanted to be introduced by your full name or just Schoening, but I was like...
It honestly doesn't matter because I use my last name as my gamer tag, so it's like I'm not really trying to hide anything here.
Right. It's the same with me. My last name was always involved in my name, so it's like, well... who cares if I add my first name? Well,
that was just
figure it out.
Exactly. I was just like sitting there going like, oh, what? I see this all the time. Like, oh, what's the inspiration behind your gamer tag? And I'm like, it's legitimately my last name with a zero, replacing the O.
Yeah. Schoening, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
It definitely was great to be able to reach out to you and ask you if you wanted to do this, and you were like, hell to the yeah. And I was super pumped. Because, you know, it's great to bring other people onto the show. And I know like Dan and Angela, they're, you know, when it comes to the TV series, like Angela's more into some of them and Dan's not into it. So it's kind of fun especially for this show where I can bring in some fresh faces or do things on my own like I decided to do.
Love it. I love every bit of it.
But thank you again for being here. So we're talking about Halo, the TV show, I think it's almost 10 years in the making. This originally was kind of conceived back in 2013. And I remember vividly, there was some big names attached with Steven Spielberg, by the way, is an executive producer on the show. His production company, Emblem, is, you know, behind this. He has been with it the entire way. It was just trying to find which avenue they wanted to go in. Did they want to do films? Did they want to do a show? And I'm just happy it's here, even if it does have its faults. I'm happy with what we're getting. So from what I've read, it's not a, you know, point for point of the games. This is actually its own thing. They pretty much took elements of the game, put it in the show, and they're creating their own story.
So I think what I found absolutely amazing about this was that basically while it is based on in the Halo universe, it's a totally different timeline. We're not following the events of the games. We're not following the events of the books, which really upset a lot of fans.
Oh yeah,
I get it. I mean, you take something and I feel like that's kind of been a stigma in the let's take games and put them on the big screen sort of thing. Is what do you do? How creative do you get with this? Do you stay completely accurate to the content? Do you basically just take cutscenes and make them into a movie or a TV show? Or do you do what Halo's doing here, which is basically like, let's rewrite this timeline. It's going to be in the wide world the exact same, but the way the events happen is totally different.
Yeah, it's what I mean, this show already, it's only 2 episodes in, and this show is already super divisive. You have your hardcore Halo fans who are just shouting at their televisions as they watch it, especially when they see certain things happening. And even me, you know, as I wear a PlayStation shirt, we're talking about an Xbox game.
Blasphemy!
You know, I've been a Halo fan since day one. You know, I remember going to my friend's house way back, you know, in 2001 when Halo, Combat Evolved came out, going to his house and playing the hell out of this game. Halo is just, it's ingrained in video game culture, and people are very passionate about this franchise. And this franchise has been through, you know, its highs and it's deep into the bowels of hell, you know, for some people. And to finally get a show that's been kind of in the works for, I mean, I think it is even before 2013, because I remember back in 2009, Neil Blomkamp, who's the director of District 9, which is an amazing film. You should anyone who has never seen that movie should go see it. That movie only exists because Neil Blomkamp was signed, like he was pretty much put in task of making a Halo film, and it just wasn't working. Peter Jackson was behind it too. He was like the overseer of it, and it just wasn't working out. And so Peter Jackson was like, all right, we're going to scrap doing this Halo thing, and we're just go make a movie you want to make. And that's why we got District 9. And to be honest, I'm happy with it because District 9 is a great film.
District 9 was legitimately a movie that when I saw the stuff come out for it, I was kind of like, I don't think I'm going to watch this. And then there was one day that it was, I mean, way after release that I finally saw it on like cable, and I was like, I watched it from the beginning, and I was like, holy cow, I totally missed out on all of this.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So yeah, it's a Paramount Plus exclusive. So, you know, if you don't have Paramount Plus, you ain't watching this movie or you ain't watching this show, which I guess that's just how things are working nowadays with these new TV shows. It's just easier for them to just throw it on a streaming service instead of it, you know, them throwing it on cable, or because they can do more. I mean, you could tell with these first 2 episodes, some of the things that they were able to do, like the blood and the gore, and there's nudity in one of the episodes.
There's a little bit of nudity towards the end of the second episode, and you're just kind of like, whoa, okay, this
did not expect this at all.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly was a little thrown back by it when I first saw it. I was just kind of like, oh, okay, so we are actually going to tailor to like the adult audience here a little bit. It just because like nudity is not anything that you saw in the video games, and all of a sudden it's just like, oh, hey, here we go. We're going to pull like a Game of Thrones and just throw, you know, just it's there.
Yep.
Nope.
I think some of the things that they added to this that we also didn't see in the games, I don't remember. And this is really not spoiling anything, as we're currently in the non-spoiler part of this show. We will announce when we're going to talk spoilers. When the Covenant, what is he considered? He's like a high priestess or high priest or something like that, or the prophets, right?
Yep.
My Halo lingo is not on par, so Schoening is here to help me out.
I'm here to help.
So he's talking to this, you know, this person, and they're talking in like an alien language. Did they do that in the games? I just thought that they just spoke English.
So there's reference to the fact that the Sangheilies and the prophets have their own languages, but it's not directly addressed in the video games. You kind of understand that there is a thing that goes on there, but I'm impressed that they took the liberty in the show to actually like, this is how they're talking. It seemed to just meld so weirdly with the fact that like this in the video games, that this Covenant army just knew how to speak English. So like you'd hear them say like demon or, you know, something, and then Arbiter basically could just have like a full-on conversation with Master Chief the whole time. I mean, it was just casual, like, hey, this alien just knows English, and that's great, you know. I feel like it adds a more realistic aspect to it, because it's kind of like, I mean, in this show, you're still the Covenant, the UNSC does not know what the Covenant really wants, and the Covenant is really, they don't care. The humans are just something that's in their way at this point. So it's just neat because nobody's taken the time to really learn. You kind of hear a few things that the humans are trying to translate the Sangheili language, but they don't know how to speak it. So
yeah, because they talk about how, you know, when they talk about the Covenant, a lot of people were like, oh, we just thought it was a myth. We didn't know this was real. We just thought it was some BS at the UNSC or USNC?
UNSC.
UNSC. That they were kind of just, you know, spewing into the universe. So we're talking about episode 1 and 2 because we're a little late to the party here. I was trying to figure out whether or not I was going to review this show, and then I said, screw it, we're going to do it, because I have been a huge fan of the Halo series, the video game series, since the beginning, and Schoening is a big Halo fan. So I figured since I got somebody to talk to about this show, why not do it? So we're doing episode 1 and 2. Episode 2 just came out today as of this recording, but this won't be out until Monday. Schoening, what did you think of episode 1 titled Contact?
Okay, so doing this without any spoilers, I'm going to give the most vague yet I'm gonna try to draw these people in because I want people to give this show a chance. I don't want you
Yeah.
to sit there and hear the thing saying, "Oh, well, but Halo, the TV show's nothing like the games." You're right. It's nothing like the games. It's
Yeah.
not. It doesn't follow the story. You're not going to sit there and all of a sudden just be thrust into John 117 and you're just gonna discover Halo. You don't do that. Number 1, we're back before Halo is even known about. I
Yep.
mean, they don't even know about the rings. Um, the thing is that while this is not true to the lore of the video games and the books, the writing in this and the character acting is phenomenal. It is very well done, and the characters make you get invested into their stories.
Mm-hmm.
It took me only just a few minutes within the first episode to just I was like, I gotta know a little bit more about this. What is going on? I mean, uh, they wrote such a good I don't even know what the word is. John is such more of an enigma in this one. He is just he's a Spartan in this one, and
Yep.
that's all he is. He is not the Master Chief that you know in the video games. He while he has the rank of Master Chief, he is not the guy that you know when you meet him in Halo Combat Evolved.
Right. He's like a alternate universe Master Chief. If you want to go into
Right.
Marvel speak, he's from the multiverse. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, well, no, you're actually pretty right because I mean, you've got what they call the gold timeline and the silver timeline. So the gold being the video games and the silver being what's going on Paramount Plus right now.
Yeah.
So in a way, multiverse, could we see something in the future? Probably not, but it's a
No,
neat thing.
probably
2
not.
Master Chiefs, it'd be too
Yeah.
much, it'd make my head explode.
I think the reason they did it was so that because of the fact that the video game series is still going on and it has been around for now 21 years, they don't want to mess with that. They don't want to do a prequel that then has to lead into, Halo Combat Evolved, which clearly, if before people figured out it had nothing to do with the games, would take place before it. They wanted to do their own thing. They just wanted to. They just took core things from the games that people liked, and they're like, we're going to make our own story based on this, whether you like it or not. Which a lot of people clearly didn't like it, based on the fact that there was just so much in there. It was like, that wouldn't have happened. Why is he like that? Why is he doing that? And you're like, and I did that a couple times until I read up that it was their own. They were doing their own thing, and I was like, okay, I'm going to enjoy this a little bit more.
I think it threw me for a loop kind of when it was like the day before the first episode came out. Like they were like, "Oh yeah, the producers on this show, like they didn't play any of the video games. They didn't read any of the books. They just kind of like read a synopsis of the Halo lore and we give you this." And I
Right.
was just like, "Oh, okay, I'm losing faith real quick." I watched the episode and I was pleasantly surprised.
Right. It's always those early, reviews by people who just, they're hardcore fans, and I appreciate the fans out there who are very, they're protective of a franchise, which is fine, but you gotta spread your wings a little bit. All right, you gotta let people take something that you love and kind of do their own thing with it, and clearly them coming out and saying that they are creating their own timeline, that's fine with me. I'm cool with that because it's not going to mess with anything. And I feel I'm not going to nitpick at things now. I'm not going to be like, well, that doesn't make any sense, because there is a big thing that happens in this first episode that never happens in the game. And when it does happen, you never see. It's hard to explain it without spoiling what event I'm talking about. But when we get to, we'll talk about it in a little bit when we get
We'll
to the
get to the
spoilers of this
spoiler part
episode.
and
Yeah.
divulge all.
I do you have anything to add on your non-spoiler review on this?
I feel like it's just you need to give it a try. If you're somebody out there and regardless of whether you've played the Halo video games since Combat Evolved, whether you jumped in mid whatever, I don't care if you've just read the books. This show, the way that they set it up is for anybody. I don't care how little of Halo knowledge you've got because they are hitting all of the marks. They're helping you fill in who these people are, what they're doing, and where this story is going from here. I they're doing a good job of storytelling, and they're bringing in people, hopefully a whole nother group of people who never have even played the Halo games, never even heard of Halo, but they're like,
Exactly.
"Hey, I want it." Exactly, and there's gonna be, like, the people that I heard that watched The Witcher. I mean, they're gonna be like, "Wait, this is a video game?" And everybody's like, "Yeah, it's multiple video games, and
Mhm.
it's still going strong." And everybody's like, "Let me play the video games because I loved this." And then they love the video
But
games, and they're like, "My life has been a lie because I didn't know this existed." So, I feel like if Halo does this right, and it seems that they're on the right track for it, I feel like they can do that here. They can pull a Witcher, they can pull, um, they can pull just a whole bunch more people into this lore and franchise.
oh, I 100% agree. I feel lately when it comes to video game adaptations, either TV or movies, it's kind of been going strong the last couple of years. You know, a lot of people were very like doubtful of Sonic. Like they thought it was
Mhm.
going to be an absolute train wreck. And Sonic, no joke, from in my opinion, is probably one of the better video game movies ever made.
I
Sonic the
think
Hedgehog
what
we're talking about here.
I think what hit that real big for me was when the fans outcried because they hated the original design of Sonic.
Yes.
I mean, the producers, I mean, everybody, they went back and they were like, "Hey, we have to do this right. We have the burden of this whole franchise on our shoulders right now, and we need to make this work." And they went back and they completely reworked the character.
Right.
And I think that was what needs to be done. You have to take the fan base into account with this. You have to sit there and go, "Hey, now while we're not staying 100% true to this source material that we have in front of us, we have to keep it at least within these boundaries." And you have to
Yeah.
find those boundaries that have to be set so that you still have the creative ability, but you're not taking away from what everybody loves,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Oh, I agree. The only franchise that seems to not get it, just can't figure out how to get it right is Resident Evil. But I'm hoping this Netflix show that's coming out soon can change because, whoo,
It only takes one. It
yes,
takes one,
please,
and that's it.
please.
I mean, I heard a lot of people. I had the same thing when they released the Assassin's Creed movie a few years ago. I was excited for it because I was like, "Hey, I love the Assassin's Creed stuff." I had personally liked the movie, a lot of people didn't.
I thought it was pretty good. I don't think it
I
was as
I
bad as
thought
people
it I
thought,
thought it
but
held I thought it held pretty true to the kind of the core material, but you
no,
can't please all of the people all the time, so
nope, not at all. This I was pleasantly surprised how well this episode was, put out there. Especially, people got to realize this is a TV show that's got TV, budget. I don't know what the budget is on this show, but you can tell that it's not as high budgeted as some, let's say a Marvel movie or other action, related media. But to be honest, the special effects look pretty good. The design of the Spartan suits looked really good, especially Master Chief looks like Master Chief, with maybe a little bit of little bit of changes on his suit, but he looks like Master Chief. I think people, of course, people are going to question his voice. He doesn't sound like Master Chief. It listen, it you just gotta go with it, okay? He's this dude. It's an actor behind us in a suit, and it's just like the Mandalorian. All right, it's just people need to chill. All right,
it's
enjoy this
it's
show.
it's hard to throw a new actor with a totally different voice in when you've got somebody with such an iconic voice like Steve Downes.
Hmm.
I mean, you've got just this picture in your head, and you never see Master Chief's face in the video games, whereas you see it quite a bit in the TV show.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it was a double whammy. The voice is different, but when you see the face, you're just like, "Holy cow, this is not what I expect."
No.
And I
No.
think that's part of the turnoff for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
Halo, like, the people that have to be very, that it should be this way. You should have had Steve Downs. Hey, Master Chief should never take his helmet off, and I'm like, What's this hurting?"
Right. I mean,
What
don't get me wrong. I can't be too harsh on people for being upset when he takes spoilers. Everybody, sorry, we forgot to mention this is a pretty decent spoiler of him removing his helmet.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I screwed
Yeah.
that up.
Our apologies. We're gonna put spoiler. Listen, this isn't our first time doing this show, so if you don't know that there's spoilers in this, there's spoilers in this. Yeah, that was something that was kind of like, all right, so so there was literally how many games with Master Chief now? 6.
We're up to 6.
Yeah, with the core games with Master Chief. And I believe he takes off his helmet in one of them. Remember which one, but you never see his face. He takes it off and he kind of, maybe it was from a trailer. I don't even remember, but I remember seeing him take off his helmet, but you never see his head. You never see, like, you don't even see the back of his head. He takes it off and then it just shows his helmet. This is like, here you go, guys. First episode. We're about 10 minutes from the end and he takes his helmet off and you're like, no, please, no. Like, I can't see his face. This doesn't make any sense. Why is this happening? But then once you realize that this is its own entity, then I can forgive it for doing something like as drastic as Chief taking his helmet off. That's like, listen, if anyone's here, who is listening or watching has seen The Mandalorian, one of the biggest things of the main character is he doesn't take his helmet off because it's part of his religion. It's like against his religion. And that's like if he states that in the beginning of the episode and then by the end of the first episode, the Mandalorian just whips his helmet off. It's just
That's basically it. And the weird part is I mean, it's a big thing, I understand, because it never happens in the games, but there's nothing written in the games or the books or anything like that that says Master Chief never removed his helmet. I mean, actually, I think if I remember right in the books, there's actually quite a few references to the fact that John's out of his suit
a lot.
Like any time he's not in combat. I mean, his suit is for combat.
Right.
When he goes into combat, he gets his suit on. It's just, I mean, that's just part of it. And I feel like them showing you his face is kind of like hey, this person is real. There is a person behind this mask, and we are invested in him, not what he is, or what.
Right.
We're not looking at the suit. We're looking at the person inside the suit.
We want to see him as more than just this hulking, machine. That, to be honest, that's what Master Chief pretty much is in the game. He's just I mean, he does show emotions in the game, especially with Cortana and, and with certain characters from the games. But I feel just in these first 2 episodes, you get more emotion. You get more, you just get more out of him in the way that he the way that he interacts with Halsey, who is kind of like, I guess, a mother figure to him because she's kind of, the head of the whole Spartan program.
So that was one place that they actually did they kept pretty true to it. I mean, Halsey she was the mother of the Spartan program. And even in the books and in the video games, John is like, I would attribute a son to her. I mean, he's her favorite. He's the one that is the poster child for the Spartan 2 project, and he's the one that made the Spartans famous. And I feel like they also do a lot of that in the TV show, where Halsey is so invested in John. I mean, she wants every bit of it. And they state multiple times, the fact that John's like the poster child for the war. I mean, he's like the greatest weapon. And they say
Right.
that in the video games. And it's just they kept that pretty good because you have to make it work, you have to bring in the lore behind the Spartans. The Spartans are never truly dead, they're just missing in action. That is one of my favorite lines in the whole video games is that they never die, they're just MIA, and I'm just like, I love it. I love every bit of that.
In the Were these other Spartans part of the games in any way? Do you remember, or is this kind of
So,
were
no.
these created for the show?
These particular other 3 Spartans that are with, Chief in the show are part of Silver Team, and Silver Team is not referenced in the video games or the books. In the books and the video game, Master Chief is part of what they called Blue Team, and actually on his armor, on his Mjolnir armor, he still wears the Blue Team crest on his right bicep, if you look at it. He's still got an emblem up on there in the TV show. So that makes me think that Blue Team, his actual team from the video games could still exist,
Mm-hmm.
but they are not part of this, and this team is a totally different entity all in itself. They have never existed anywhere except for this.
Okay, makes sense. So yeah, we see Dr. Halsey. We have I like the change. Of course, they took characters that were part of the game and they kind of they changed their race. They changed kind of the way they interact with people, which it was cool. Captain Keyes and then his daughter was um was the daughter of Halsey too in the
Yes.
games?
So there was always a tie-in that Miranda Keyes is Halsey's daughter in the video games.
Okay.
Um, did they really make a did I miss? Did they make like a reference to that in the TV show yet?
So there was a scene where Commander Keyes comes to talk to Miranda after she talks to Quan,
Oh.
and they're having the conversation, and she always calls her Halsey,
Mhm.
and pretty much just like she takes all the funding. She's pretty much complaining about her, and he's like, you gotta, just gotta relax. It's just how she is. And he's like, yeah, well, it's not, it's a little bit different when it's your mother.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was kind of like a
Yeah. You had to kind of
blow
pay
off
attention
sort
to
of
that
thing.
conversation
See, that was
in
one
order to
thing I
figure it
missed,
out.
and I'm glad you caught that because,
Yeah.
yes, they do reference that in, they do reference that in the video games that Halsey is Miranda's mother.
What it,
The
oh, sorry,
the
go ahead.
thing that, I think the other thing that kinda threw me off was Miranda in the games was more of a leader. I mean, she was coming into her own, and by Halo 3, she is like this full on, you know, she takes the place of her dad. I mean, she becomes this leader,
Mhm.
and, in this show, it's just she's more of a scientist. She hasn't stepped into any sort of leadership role outside of, like, outside of the labs, I feel. I mean, like, she's smart. She's really
Yeah.
smart, but it seems like they've changed kind of her upbringing a little bit. Like, I fully expected her to be, like, right by her dad's side, like, on the bridge of a
Right.
ship going, like, "Ah, we're gonna go stick it to the Covenant," and they haven't really done that.
Yeah. You can tell that she's still i- in her position. She's kind of nervous because when she's talking to Quan on the ship, like Quan is confronting her, pretty much like, well, I'll just tell him, you sent the Spartans to kill everybody. And Bungie, well, that's a lie. And like, she's getting really like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. As Quan just keeps on throwing shade at her. And is she like, does she work in like the science department? Because she's studying like Covenant body parts and
she's in
stuff.
Xeno. She's in the Xeno like research part. I mean, she's the one that like dissects the aliens basically. I mean, anything that's like alien or Xeno to them is technically supposed to go through her. That's why you just it threw me for such a loop. I was like, this doesn't seem like the Miranda Keys that I came to know. But again, another one of those changes that I don't personally have a problem with. It's just out of left field,
Right.
just kind of different.
Oh yeah, I mean the feeling you got with that is kind of how I think me and most people got when we saw Master Chief take his helmet off.
Exactly. It's just kind of like,
what?
yeah, you're just kind of like, oh, okay, so Miranda's here, and this is not the Miranda that I know, but okay, they're going to do something with this character, and if things kind of remain halfway true, maybe she will become, a really good, admiral or something down the line. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard
Right.
to say what they'll do with the other, what is it, 7 episodes of this show?
Yeah.
I think it's seven more. They did 9 total.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's
Yeah,
gonna
it's
be
gonna
an
be
interesting story.
it's gonna be a fun journey. And I'm very, of course they throw in stuff about Cortana, how they're
Mhm.
how Halsey's trying to get the Cortana program up, but she keeps getting roadblocks by Admiral, I'm gonna mispronounce this woman's name, Paragoski.
You're doing you're doing way better than I could. Parangoski is
Parangoski.
how I interpret it.
That sounds more like it than what I said.
But I think that was another kind of thing that kind of threw me off because we know for a fact, and this was proven in the trailers, that Jen Taylor's going to revise her role as Cortana at some point in this
I
series.
know.
Because you got that quick little clip of Cortana walking up and going like, "Hi, Master Chief.
Yeah, in
I'm
the trailer.
Cortana."
Yep.
And you're just like, "Okay, cool." It threw me for a little bit of a loop because in the games, again, you see, I mean, Cortana's supposed to be basically a spitting image of Halsey.
Yeah.
I mean, Cortana is basically Halsey's brain converted into an AI.
Yep.
And uh, nothing against Natasha. She plays an amazing, amazing Dr. Catherine Halsey. It's just different to see like Cortana looking different from her creator because I mean,
Right.
in the lore that she was supposed to be just basically a mirror copy. And they do um talk about that a little bit, how AIs are created, about you have to flash clone a copy of a person, and then you have to basically download their brain to
Mhm.
create an AI, and it's not legal.
Yeah.
And that's where the roadblocks start to come in, and it's different because you're like, well, but you're cloning yourself. You're going through this process, but this AI that's coming out is not you. It's hard
Yeah.
to say. I'm
It's
nitpicking.
yeah, I mean, I feel that's how what a lot of people are doing, and I was doing it too, and especially because you know, we're such fans of the game series that we're gonna do this regardless if we know the true intentions of the showrunners of the show and what their plan is for it. We're still gonna do it. I'm
Yeah.
still gonna enjoy the hell out of it because
Oh, yeah.
these first 2 episodes I thought were really good. I liked, episode 1 is that kind of bombastic, here's what's going on and this is how things are starting, and we're getting to see some things we didn't, we weren't expecting from, especially from Master Chief. And episode 2 is a little bit slower, but
Mhm.
it's showing, it's showing people in John's, past, and it's all about escaping. That episode 2 is just about escaping, you know, escaping the past, escaping from what John became, you know,
Right.
with the Soren character in episode 2. But sticking to episode 1, what'd you think of the special effects? What'd you think of the fight scene on Madrigal with the Covenant and the weapons.
So I know a lot of people were like, "Wow, that looks kind of tacky in a certain couple spots," which I agree. I mean, there's some that look a little bit more robotic, a little bit more CGI'd. But I also got to remember what the budget is for this show. It's not, like you said earlier, a blockbuster movie. We're not seeing this insane, multi-hundred-million-dollar budget being thrown at this. I think, to make a long story short, I think that the CGI and the work that they've done on the visuals is spectacular, all things considered, for what they're doing. Because I don't know what or the process is to legitimately make a Sing Healy into CGI. I don't know what that is. I don't know what it takes to make a profit into CGI, but I'm sure it's a
Yeah.
lot of work. So I'm just gonna give the guys the benefit of the doubt and say, "Hey, guys, you did pretty darn good here."
I have to agree. I just reviewed episode 1 of Moon Knight, and the CG in this show looks better than the CG of that show, and that is a Marvel show, like Marvel
Mhm.
Studios. Don't get me wrong, it's a good show. I'm very excited for what's coming for that, but the CG in this look better. And
Yes.
there's scenes where they show close-ups of the the priest guy, of the
Mhm.
Covenant,
Yep, the profits.
the
Yep.
prophets. God damn it. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
you
remember.
mostly deal with, you see the 3
His
prophets
name's
in there that
Mercy,
are.
right?
Yep, and it's Mercy that you're dealing mostly with because he
Yeah.
was technically the leader of the prophet or leader of the prophets.
You get a couple close-up shots of his face, and it looks really good. Like the details and
Mhm.
the mouth movement, of course, is always a thing that's kind of gets thrown off because but he's also speaking in an alien tongue, so it's always just like, does it match up? Because
Yeah.
that's always a throw off for me when things are speaking and it doesn't make sense. Like their mouth is moving, but the words just don't match what the mouth's doing. And you're like, whoa, all right. I thought the elites looked, I think out of everything, I think the elites looked they looked okay in certain spots and they looked really good in others. I think the worst part of the special effects for me was when the Spartans first land and you have your, actual actor in suit running, and then it shows them running really fast and jumping, and it just didn't look very smooth.
It does not cut well together, let's put it
No.
that way. That was one place I feel they did miss, because it's like you said, you see this guy take off, and of course, a guy in a bulky suit, I don't care what it's made out of, he's not going to just, run at full sprint.
Right.
Um, but then all of a sudden, you cut to this next thing, which is, is CGI, because all of a sudden, this guy is just, like, full on just running
Going.
faster than anybody could ever run, and then makes this just amazing leap through the air, and you're just like,
Right.
"Okay, that was not as fluid as I'd like it to be, but we gotta take some creative liberties here
Right.
somewhere." So
The fact that what is so when the Covenant first show up and you got the elites with the energy sword, which I thought looked really cool, and
Mhm.
I was one of those like, oh my god, it's the sword. When the the people of Magical are fighting and they're shooting at them, and it's just shooting at their shields and nothing's happening, and it doesn't deplete their shields until the Spartans show up and they're shooting at them, and it depletes their shields, which then they can kill them. Is it because they're using different ammo in
I
their
think there's
weapons?
actually a quick little reference that Chief says something about that, about the battle rifle that he has in his hand is either a higher caliber rifle or something like that, because, he even kind of he even kinda mentions, to Quan when they're on the ship later, something about, when Quan kinda aims a gun at him, he goes like, "This suit has got a, energy shield and stuff like that. The bullets will just bounce off." So I
Yeah.
feel like when you're on Madrigal, you're kind of led into this story that these people are kind of on a backwater planet.
Yeah.
They don't have nice things. They're very far back in technology. So I think it was kind of a creative liberty that some of the directors took, that it was like, we're supposed to show that humanity in these kind of outer reaches of these planets, they don't have the stuff that the UNSC has. These
Yeah.
people have been at war with the UNSC. It's working fine. You know, their weapons are working fine against the UNSC because they're fighting humans that don't have power, energy shields. They've got no power weapons, stuff like that. Until the Spartans come walking in, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh well, we
Yeah.
can't do anything because we don't
Yeah.
have the weapons for it. So
Yeah.
no, to answer your question, I think it's just because the Spartans do. They have a more high caliber round, or their weapons are just more. I mean, they're designed for it. I mean, they've been fighting the Covenant, and they don't ever say for how long in the TV show yet, but you know that they've been battling them for a while, and I feel like things have just kind of been made to
Because they
to
know.
fight Covenant.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know what they're coming up against.
Yeah.
So,
All right. That was just something it was a minor thing I was thinking about. I was like, these people are literally shooting a lot of rounds at these elites and nothing's happening. And then the Spartans just
mhm.
show up and just like, all right, we're killing them all
Yeah,
with ease.
they kind of cleaned house awfully quick
Oh,
once
they
the
did.
Spartans showed up. Yeah,
Oh, man.
which
Oh,
I think was also another thing because the Spartans are supposed to be these amazing, unstoppable war machines. I mean, and so for these people who have these kind of inferior weapons, to them it would look like, oh my god, these guys are unstoppable because they took out a whole army of elites when we were shooting at one of them, and the dude kind of just was like, hey, you're making me mad, and
yeah.
killed a bunch of them.
Were you like me, who was really hoping little grunts were just going to come out of that too when
Oh,
the
I
elites were
have
walking
never
out?
been so upset with the fact that I did not see a grunt.
Oh man, out
I
of any freaking thing from the Covenant, I just want grunts. All right, give me some grunts.
Why did I had such a hope. There was a part of me in the back of my head when they breached the main gate on Madrigal that I was gonna see, like, 5 grunts with, like, sticky grenades stuck to their palms running around going like, "I'm gonna
Yeah,
kill you,"
yeah,
something like that. And, that didn't happen, and
right,
you don't even see a grunt, and it's just like, where's the grunts?
yeah.
I was told that there was the Covenant and there would be grunts here, and you're just like, yeah,
None of them.
honestly, I feel like that was almost more of a letdown for me than anything else in the first episode.
I was right there with you, 100%. One of the things I do want to complain about with this with the episode 1 when it comes to Madrigals. When you first show up in Madrigal, it's like in this, I guess, pub where everybody's gathered, they're playing like some sort of game, and it kind of focuses on this one guy who later dies, as does everyone in this goddamn room. But it shows, but it's the older guy, the grumpier guy who tells the story of, about at first about how many Marines he's killed because this planet hates the UNSC.
Mhm.
And then they talk about the Spartans, and it's like, and he pretty much plays them up being like, yeah, you don't kill these guys. They kill you, and
Right.
then they find some way to kill you more.
Yeah, then they bring
And
you back, and then they kill you again.
and that's the thing, is like this scene kind of is set up to kind of give you a connect with these characters. I feel, at least when you're first watching, you're like, okay, we're kind of getting the feel of this planet. We're getting the feel of these characters. They're always showing this dude with the long hair. It's like the younger guy
Yeah.
who's like sitting there. And then later on, they all die. They just all die. And and to be honest, I'm like, okay, I don't really care.
It's like I was starting to get invested in these characters, and you
Yeah.
just off them right here. So I guess nothing's really on the table here. I mean,
Right.
we're gonna just sit there and just take the plan and just completely throw the plan out the window and just go, hey, let's just kill everybody.
It was a very weird, it was a very odd choice, I believe. I feel like they were wanting something, and they're like, nah, we can't do it. It's too much time. We got to cut that. Just kill them all.
And I just say real quick how quickly my heart dropped when at the end of the fight, Kwan's dad is still alive, and you're just like sitting there going like, oh yay, the happy
Yeah.
they're going to realize that they're both alive and everything like
Yep.
that, and then all of a sudden they went through such detail so that you watch him die.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you watch the life drain from his body, and I'm just like, "Oh, that broke my heart just a little bit," because you're just like, "Yes, these 2 are gonna be, like, this awesome
Team.
team in
Yeah.
this with John for some reason," and then all of a sudden they kill him, and you're just like,
Yeah.
"Okay, screw that, I have no idea what the heck's going on here."
Yeah, it was it was an interesting choice. Some of the choices they made in this entire scene was just like, okay, I wasn't seeing that happening, but I guess I should have expected it. You know, you got to have a parent die to push somebody else to push the story along. That's just how Hollywood works. All right, kill a
We're gonna pull
parent.
a
All right, we're gonna
Batman.
kill a parent. Yeah,
Yeah,
we get
we're gonna
it.
pull a Batman.
We get it. Batman's parents die. Damn it.
Yeah. And then the whole and now we gotta have a really deep and dark and brooding child who hates the world. It's Batman, but in space. It's
Oh.
space Batman.
Right. Oh man. I I really enjoy and I can't wait to see more of the whole thing behind John and the whatever the hell he finds in that cave, that piece that he touches and it causes him to see memories of his past. You know, of course, him touching that causes him to kind of feel things because Spartans are kind of conditioned to not really feel emotions. They're, you know, they're conditioned to be soldiers and to get orders and, you know, and do the orders, complete them and move on to the next thing.
Right.
And this device opens something up in John where he, you know, the UNSC, they determine this, you know, this girl needs to die, the Kwan, and John is tasked in doing it because he's with her and he sabotages the ship and, you know, pretty much turns on everything he's known just to
Right.
protect this girl that he believes shouldn't die, you know, just because UNSC wants to make sure there is no one out there to pretty much tell on him for fucking up pretty much.
Absolutely. And I think that was something and if somebody who knows a little bit more about the Halo universe and the video games and the books can I mean if you're listening to this and you want to yell at me in the comments, please do. Um I don't believe that in the books and in the comics or comics in the games, I don't believe that I don't believe that they conditioned the Spartans to forget their childhoods.
Hmm.
Now while in the video games they are trained to follow orders and they're mean, lean, mean killing machines. I don't remember them ever like completely wiping their memory, and I feel like that's something new in the TV show. And it's I think that that's adding a whole nother thing because you're more invested in John now. He's learning about this whole life that basically he didn't even know he had.
Yep.
And you're going to see because you know it's gotta happen, you're going to see at some point where he's just whisked away by the UNSC because he got chosen to be a Spartan and he's torn away from his family and, um, you know, uh, he's subjected to all these different augmentations and stuff like that, you know, to
Yep.
become a Spartan. But I do seem to remember, I think it's in I think it's in the Ghosts of Reach book. I think you actually dive pretty deep, and he seems to remember, like, all of his childhood memories and growing up and stuff like that, so,
Yeah.
um, I don't think that's the same, but again, it's probably something that they're going to use to build a bigger story in the end, so
I could see that. I mean, they kind of hint to it in episode 2, which we are going to be throwing spoilers out there for episode 2. So if you haven't watched episode 2 of Halo, don't stop here. Come back when you're done.
just watch this whole thing after you've watched the first 2 episodes, please.
Exactly. Yeah. So we meet a character named Soren. He's originally Soren 066. He was a Spartan, but he chooses to escape. He wants to get out of the program, and the whole episode opens up to him to John. You think John is going to join him? Like John sneaks out of bed which you figure it's him because he kind of looks like the dude who plays the adult the actual version of Master Chief that we saw in episode 1. And he goes out there and you think, oh, is he trying to escape too? But he actually turns on him and tells him to come back. Like, I'm pretty much gonna tell, like, you either come back or I kill you. And, you know, and then later on when you meet Soren, you know, during the actual timeline here, he talks, what does he talk about? Like, he has something in, like, take something out and be free.
Well, it's basically like he talks about, you know, their quote unquote programming that they do to the Spartans, and it's basically just like if you if you don't subject yourself to their whatever, you know, whatever it is, procedures, erasement, whatever, you can be free. I mean, basically, he's saying like if you leave the UNSC, you can be a free man. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing that is inside you that they did to you that is going to make you a Spartan forever. You can leave and you can just become just this really big buff, I can punch through walls dude that just is whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Basically, he's just offering, I mean, he's doing the same thing that he did at the beginning of the episode, which is he's just like, "John, just be free. Do what you want. You don't have to be this tool that the UNSC is using," because,
Right.
Soren sees the UNSC for what it is. It's using the Spartans as these just they're weapons. They're not people. They don't care if a Spartan dies, they make another Spartan and
Right.
they continue on. I mean, they're just expendable at that rate. And Soren's trying to get that through to Master Chief, and you start to see that in the second episode that now that some of Master Chief's memories are getting unlocked, he's starting to be like, "Oh, okay, maybe Soren's got a point here," you know.
Yeah.
Um, I'm starting to understand, you know, but towards the end, you kind of also see that even though John has free thinking now to a lesser extent, he still does what he believes is right, and that is he's got to sacrifice, you know, like, the one person for the sake of the many. He's gotta say no to the freedom
Yep.
so that he can save humanity as a whole, and that's where you're starting to see I'm personally starting to see more of the characteristics of the Master Chief that's in the video games come in, because Master Chief in the video games to me was this free thinker who was able to feel emotions, who was able to make his own decisions. And in the first episode and part of the second episode, you're kinda like, "This dude is hardwired." He makes his you know, that he's already been programmed. He makes the choices that people want him to make. And he doesn't feel emotion. He has no idea because I think
Yeah.
there's one time when Quan, like, asks him and he's just like she's like, "Why didn't you do this?" And he's like, "I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know." It's just I feel like he's starting to get rid of his programming, and maybe this is where you're really gonna feel like you're gonna dive into John himself because you're gonna feel like, "Hey, I know this character now."
Yeah.
So,
Well,
it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think you'll see a lot of it in episode 3.
yeah. I really do. I really liked the whole, you know, seeing somebody who escaped the Spartan program with Soren. What he's doing now, he's like a king. He's like, you know, the leader of this entire, I don't know if it's a planet or if it's like an asteroid or what this is, but he's like the head honcho here.
Mhm.
And, you know, seeing, you know, John gets to see, you know, talks about having a kid. He's like, "You have a kid?" Like, and a wife. And even the fact of like him eating food, and he's like, "How is it?" And he's like, I can't taste anything. I don't taste anything."
It just goes to show you how legitimate whatever brainwashed or just mind numbed that the UNSC made John. I mean,
Right.
it's just they've controlled him down to the point where the dude doesn't even know what I mean, food tastes like. He's just like
Right.
it's just food. I eat food.
Right. But it's funny because he doesn't understand what food tastes like. But in back in episode 1, he jokes with Quan where she asks him what he eats, and he tells her like nuts and bolts and chips, and she's like, "What?" And he's like, "It's a joke." And I was like, is this part of the whole him having that new consciousness now, where he's, experiencing these new things where now he can crack a joke where he probably that wasn't even thought of, beforehand.
I feel like there's a lot of that going on. You're just
Right.
you're seeing Master Chief, or well, you're seeing less of Master Chief, you're seeing more of John.
Yeah.
Master Chief is the guy that was trained to kill, and that was all he should know.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing John, who's got a sense of humanity and is able to make emotional decisions based upon, I mean, like saving Quan, not
Yeah.
choosing not to let them kill her. He does a very hard thing, I think, at the end of episode, or towards the end of episode 2, where he leaves Quan with Soren, because he wants Quan to be safe. I mean,
Mm.
he knows that Quan's got a bounty on her head, um, and that's not even just the UNSC. It's uh uh, what's his name? Grath, that has taken over Madrigal, the guy that's
Yeah, like the
taken over
dictator
the seat.
guy. Yeah.
And the funny part is I can't stop this. It's the same guy that was in Pacific Rim that
Yeah,
played the crazy scientist,
yeah.
and all I can see every time I see him on the screen now is I just feel like he should just be raving about kaiju. Like, I don't see him, like, there's a whole section in episode 2 where he's got people lined up with bags on their heads, and
He's
he's
just
murdering them, just
murking them.
firing
Yeah.
squad, 1 down, and
Yeah.
I'm like, "This is not this guy. This guy should
Yeah.
be just he should be have, like, a whole bunch of stuff plugged into his head and should be mind melding with a kaiju right now, just freaking out about stuff." Um,
Yeah, he was in The Dark Knight Rises too. He played kind of a bad guy in that. That was the first time I ever saw him, was in that. And then I remember seeing Pacific Rim after, and I was like, "Oh, that's a weird turn." And then seeing him in
mhm,
this, where you see him in the first episode and you don't know exactly who he is. You just know that people don't like him. But
right.
he works for Jin, who was the father of Quan. Um, and now that Jin is dead, he is now like the leader of Madrigal, and he's like a dictator. He's ruthless. He was literally lining people up and executing them in the streets. And there's even that one scene or that one part of it all where he stops at one and he lifts up her hood, and she doesn't look very old. She's probably a teenager, and he's just like, "Yeah, fuck it," and then just continues on, and
Yeah.
you're like,
I mean,
"Ooh,
he's got no care in the world, like, "Anybody
no,
that doesn't align with me, well, you're just gonna die," and
yep,
that's fine, and there's actually a little snippet in the 2nd episode where they talk about him taking over the rule of Madrigal,
yep,
where they're just like you kinda find out that the UNSC kinda had him in place because he favors the UNSC, he's not a
yeah,
rebel, and they had him in place so that if, for some reason, they could do a coup and they could, because they needed Madrigal for its resources.
yeah,
And while they were doing that, Madrigal was still helping the UNSC to a certain extent with their resources, but then they were like, "Well, just in case this guy decides like, hey, we're not gonna help the UNSC at all because we just hate him," he was like, "We could totally just do a coup and just put this guy in power." And then all of a sudden you just kinda hear them on this one-off thing. They're like, "Guy's got a little bit more of an iron fist than I thought he'd have," and I'm just
yeah,
like, all of a sudden it, like, flashes to this scene of this guy just walking down and just, like,
yeah.
shooting people in the face, and you're like, "Yeah, that's a little bit more of an iron fist than I think."
I really hope it's not a problem though down the road when it comes to the show and focusing on too many like bad guys. Like you have the Covenant, and then you have this guy too, and also like the UNSC is also kind of the villain, as
Yes.
they're the orchestrators of Grath. It's I really hope it all ties in very nicely at the end. I feel there's just a lot of shows lately that have been solid throughout, and then they just can't stick the landing.
They tend to just kind of expand out a little too far outside their grasp, and then at the end of the season, they can't wrap that whole nice
Yeah,
thing
they
in it
can't
with
wrangle
a
them all
nice little
back
bow.
in. Yeah,
Yeah. And I share that exact same feeling because it's like you said, we've got Grath now that we feel is going to be a bad guy at some point. Um, we've got the Covenant, we've got the Prophets, we've got I mean the Civil War with the UNSC is still technically going on. We got to figure out, because like you said, the UNSC is definitely portrayed that they are not the perfect good guys in this. They
No.
have a really bad side, and they have their own agenda too.
Yep.
Um, and so I just feel like there's, like, a lot of negatives out there that I'm just like, how are these all going to tie together in the next you've only
Right.
got 7 episodes, so you've got 7 hours to tell us a pretty big
To
web
kind of
because there's a
wrangle
lot of stuff.
everything in. Because you got to even look at Halsey too. She's not a good guy in this. She's the one who created this Spartan program to begin with.
Mhm.
You know,
Which
she. eh,
in all fairness, Halsey, even in the video games, is a pretty sketchy character.
Yeah.
She looks out for number 1, and that's her. I
Yeah.
mean, she wants her way, so
Yeah. It's ultimately, it's like, who's the good guy in the story?
that's just it. I don't know as if there is one other than
Exactly.
I guess maybe John, I guess you kinda
Yeah.
figure he's going to be a good guy.
Um, so, you know, the whole thing with John meeting up with this, I don't know if he was like some seer in the jail, on Soren's planet there.
Oh, yes, I can't think of his name, but yeah, the guy that was taken he was abducted by the Covenant, and he made it off of one of their ships alive.
Yeah. And he
Yeah,
can like
so
see things.
yep. Yeah,
And
because they supposedly experimented on him,
yeah,
didn't didn't they?
yeah,
Something like that?
where
Was the probe.
yep. And he touches the device and it does nothing. And then when John touches it, it does, it shoots off that big ray of blue and the guy freaks out and, tells him, who are you? What, I know what you are type deal. And John's trying to figure out like, who am I? I don't really like, you tell me who I am. And then it all kind of puts it in his head that, all right, I need to go back because this is more extreme. This is more than just me, more about me trying to figure out who I am. This is about making sure that, the Covenant don't go out and just destroy the universe.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
that's the first time we hear about the actual halos, right? Or I mean,
yeah,
they don't call it Halo, they just
no, they
call
could
it
just call them the rings.
the rings, and he doesn't even really know 100% of what it does. He's just like it's just basically extinction. I mean, like
Yeah,
everything
the
dies.
end of humankind, pretty much.
Yep. I
I oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I mean, it's kinda like again, a little bit of a deviation from it because they're finding out about the Halo array a totally different way than they do in Combat Evolved, which is legitimately they, like, crash land on one. So, I mean,
Yeah,
it's different. It's kinda different to see a different way for them to find out about it,
right.
I guess? I don't know. It's kind of a different take.
Yeah, it's interesting. We see John. He goes back to Reach and turns himself in, turns the device over. Of course, they strip him of his armor, so he's taken in. He's just John now. He's not. He
Mhm.
doesn't have any of his armor. Halsey is very sneaky. She sneaks up behind and she takes the device before any of the higher ups in the UNSC get it. And John and Halsey, they have this conversation about, about what's going on with him. And she kind of is very supportive. Is she truly supportive or is it kind of just her, wanting to hear something new? I don't know. She seems genuinely comfortable and she really does care. I feel she does care for the people that are, the Spartans, especially John,
Mhm.
because I don't know.
I feel like you're onto something there. I mean, I think she sees them as her kids.
Yeah.
She trained them, she raised them, or I guess she didn't raise them, but she was the one that saw them through from the beginning of the Spartan Project to where they are now. But I also think, you kinda hear them talk, where, Halsey is trying to get, the okay go on get finishing the Cortana project, because we haven't actually seen Cortana herself in this, to this point yet, and The main case she makes on this to, the, Admiral Hood is that she can use it to control John.
Yeah.
So I feel like if that's true, and if she's not just doing, saying that just to get, the funding or whatever red tape she needs off of it,
Mhm.
I feel like she could still kind of be in that thing where she's like, "No, we need to control you because who's to say what happens if all of a sudden you just kind of go do your own thing?"
Right.
And that's kind of interesting because they did explore what happens when John goes AWOL in uh 5? Was it? Yeah, 5. 5 is the one where he technically is AWOL from the
Right.
UNSC.
And you have
And
to and use the other character, their lock or something to
yeah,
go after
you're
him.
technically Agent Locke in a couple of missions and stuff like that, and you're hunting John down, and so I'm able to see kind of a parallel between those 2. John's doing what he wants to do and stuff like that. It'll just be interesting to see if Halsey actually programs Cortana to be basically a mind controlling device.
Right.
Whereas from the start, Cortana's just basically just a tool in the games. I
Yeah.
mean, there's nothing to do with brain control. Um,
Yep.
so it'll be interesting to see if they even paint Cortana to be out as a bad guy from the start. Now we have a theory that someday down the line, if they continue to make multiple seasons of this, that they'll probably turn Cortana into a bad guy to continue on, with kind of a parallel of what happened in the games. But
Right.
um, it'll just be interesting to see if they kind of show that she is kind of a bad guy, a bad person, just at the very beginning of where we meet her.
Yeah. If she's just something to really further the control by Halsey on
Mhm.
on at least John, because I know she tells the scientist that she's working with, I don't know, I didn't catch his name if he had one, um, about how they want to use Cortana on John. Like,
Mhm.
that's her prime objective, is to, when she, Cortana is finished, John is who uh she will be with. What is the story behind the body though? So they have like that clone body.
So I touched on that a little bit earlier, but I can dive into it a little bit more now because, we're spoiler free here. Um, in the books, and it seems that they're having a very good tie-in with this. The only way that an AI was originally able to be created was basically, or I shouldn't say an AI. There are 2 different types of AIs in the Halo universe: a smart AI and a dumb AI. Dumb AIs ran your ship. They could do like simple tasks, plot courses, run certain aspects of the ship, bring weapons online, change the power here, turn lights on there.
Yeah.
Smart AIs are like Cortana. They can think, they learn, they adapt, and they grow. I mean, basically,
Yeah.
they're able to be like a human and continue to learn, and that's what leads to what they eventually call rampancy in smart AI, because in the books and video games they talk about how after, I can't even remember. It's either like 4 or 7 years. I can't remember. It's just basically the AI gets too smart and its processing power can't handle it anymore, so it starts to go crazy because it can't handle all of the processes and the things it's learned and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so basically to create an AI that can handle this sort of processing, they have to legitimately copy a brain. And to create Cortana, Halsey flash clones herself, which is legitimately like if you could step into a pod and press a button, and then all of a sudden out of the pod next to you, a perfectly identical copy of you just comes walking out. I mean, like, you've completely created a totally perfectly identical, you know,
Right.
copy of yourself.
Yeah.
It's just basically then she takes that, and you see it in the episode, she's got her clone in, like, this suspended animation chamber or whatever.
Yeah.
Basically, what she's gonna do with that and this isn't, I don't think this is spoilers for episode 3. She's going to basically kill this clone. She's going to download its brain, kill the body, and she's going to turn that brain into Cortana.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how smart AIs come to be. And that's, you actually hear a mention of it in episode 2 where they're talking about the whole Cortana project with the kind of the higher ups of the UNSC about flash cloning and why it's illegal and all the red tape behind that. So, they are holding to the video games in that aspect of how Cortana came to be.
Well, breaking it all down. I love it. All right. Well, that's where we're going to end this episode. It was kind of just a conversation. We didn't really do plot from beginning to end. We kind of just threw everything everywhere. Schoening, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. I love being here, and I'll come back anytime you want me.
Absolutely. We're going to be doing this weekly, so Schoening is going to be sticking around every week for the rest of this season to talk more Halo. So we'll be back next week to talk episode 3. We're going to be doing just one episode per episode of this show going forward. And yeah, this will be out Monday. So when you're watching it, it is Monday, hopefully. A lot of content this week on the channel. This will be the first week. I'm not saying it's not going to be every week, but this will be the first week where there will be a piece of content every single day. So on Monday will be this episode of Slice of TV. Tuesday will be our video debut of, Resident Evil Afterlife, an episode that we did back in July. It's the first time it's going to be in video form. Wednesday will be our fresh cut of Fresh, the movie from the Sebastian Stan movie on Hulu. Dan and Angela will be joining me for that. Thursday will be my solo venture into episode 2 of Moon Knight. And then Friday will be our regular podcast episode 49 and that one is going to be probably one of my favorite episodes. As of this recording, we haven't recorded yet, but I already know it's going to be one of my favorite recordings because we are talking about The Dark Knight. Whew, it's going to be a good one.
Fun one. That'll be fun. I can't wait to hear this one.
It's going to be so much fun. So yeah, it's a lot of content this week, but don't expect it every week because it's a lot. Schoening, where can people find you?
Basically just go to any social platform and type in @Schoening, SCH0ENING, and you can probably find me.
I'm going to put all of his links down in the description. So if you're like, what? You can just click on any of the links down below.
What?
Schoening also streams on Twitch sometimes.
I do. I have been off of streaming due to having a kiddo recently and enjoying some time being a dad. But I am slowly making my comeback, and it'll probably be pretty spotty during the spring here. But I will be making more of an appearance, I hope, during the summer months.
Very exciting. So make sure to click on that Twitch link down below and drop him a follow if you are someone who enjoys watching streams. Sometimes I do.
Sometimes I do.
Sometimes
I don't.
Until next time, I am your host, Brett Parker, and that is Andrew Schoening. And this is Slice of TV. We'll see y'all next time.
Bye. Peace out, everybody.